here's just an example. Like when we took this one here, this is just during like the busy season out to December. This one obviously scaled from like 20 sales to 700 sales, and we spent ungodly amounts of money on this entire platform here. We spent 25 grand on the December 9th. What which one won?
I mean, based on ROAS, yeah, that one,
Based
the
on
catch-all.
volume, based on volume, based on sales, based on ROAS. This was the only one that got over four. It hit almost 4.5 million. These didn't touch 3.5 million. Or 350,000.
Thousand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. So 450,000, 350,000. Yeah. And also at 3.6 and 2.9. It's always easier to sell things when they're all grouped together. It's just natural order of things.
Yeah.
Each here's the other part I think is really funny when you're thinking about the ways to structure your standard shopping campaigns. I always like catch-alls at least in the beginning. At least in the beginning. Because I had no idea. And no one in the history of the world could be like the Jenna Flora tote bag. Nailed it. You add it, sells out. Add it, sells out. Who knew that?
Yeah.
No one
It's
did.
super. Yeah. It's all based on the data that has, been captured by Google as well too. But I
Yep.
would I
And
would say in this scenario specifically, it makes total sense. I mean, the dog pile kind of plays into this by just like leaning more
that's
into that
exactly
one
right.
top selling product. So, but you still have the wide net, able to find more new products to then maybe cycle in further on. So it makes sense to why you start with a catch all in the first place. And I think
And
that's
break it down.
what
Yep.
we say in most cases for people in the school community is like start with a catch all and see what works, and then shift from there.
Exactly right. Always start with something that we know, or start with something that you think or is working well. Check organic search, check your sales, check your email sales, look at just your selling products, look year over year, quarter over quarter, all the stuff that we've taught. What's funny is if you look year over year, quarter over quarter, and see the sales volume of a particular item, and it's still a zombie, even on Meta and TikTok and organic, do not run that on Google. Make your client fight you on that one. Make your boss fight you on that one. There's always a better idea than forcing zombies. I'm not saying the zombies can't work. I'm not saying that there's been a use case where someone tested a zombie and it became a good one. In my opinion, that wasn't a test. Zombies are things that you spend thousands of dollars on. You're like, I'm not doing this shit anymore. Those are the ones that you put off to the side in case things change. Fine.
Yeah.
But when looking at kind of your total scalability, it's always best to run a catch-all first, then break them out by categorical, but use the products that market tells you they like. I'm going to put all my tote bags that are working well in my tote bag campaign. Is my ceiling as high? No. It will never be as high as a catch-all. And what people don't understand is every single product in your shopping campaign is an individual campaign. It really, really, really
Yeah.
is. I am not going to get, if someone goes to Google and types in Jenna Floral Canvas tote bag, they're not going to get Caitlin Pearl embellished. It's not going to happen. Now, can I get a bag to a bag? Yeah. Can I get a bag to a dress? Sure. Like you can offer different variations, but the more you segment out, the less you show up in the SERP. So as you start to segment out and you're like that search and those items and that has to be isolated. If you were to segment these out, you do get the isolation effect and you actually remove yourself from the SERP. Here's what I mean, and this is what people don't necessarily take into consideration. I'm going to do a branded search on another campaign. And we spent like only $50 a day, so hopefully it's showing up. All right, cool. So here's Solid Striped. So Solid Striped has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 products. I do not have a Solid Stripe brand for bikini and for dress and for one piece and for, I do not have that. I have a bunch here. But if I said this keyword can only match to my bikinis.
It's too manual because you don't know the user intent behind it.
Right. And so if I was looking at, floor length dress, you probably are going to see some consistency with some things. I see Azari or Azazi, and then I see Lulu's, and then I got JJ here. So you see, there's like 4 people here. You don't see Saks Fifth Avenue. You don't see Dillard's. You don't see Macy's. You see, individual scrappy marketers. So that's what we're going up against is really highly competitive ecosystem. We also have the same issue with the other company that we do consulting for. We have one standard shopping campaign for 865 pens. 865 pens.
Wow.
I get one spot.
Yeah.
My competitor that has everything in kind of a big catch-all, and I look for sure, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why? So I stuck all of my SKUs in one campaign. Google does what with those search terms when you stick everything in one campaign? Well, if I look at like my all dresses and I look at my products and I look at a 7-day period and I sort descending by conversions, I have these here, and then everything else is, oh no, a zombie. No, it's not a zombie. It's just not what people want.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Exactly.
could change, but yeah.
Exactly. And then if you kind of do it like in a shorter time period, you start to see higher points of concentration. So higher points of concentration when Google optimizes, you see, okay, this one's selling twice as much as this one. And it's the same damn thing. Cool.
Yeah.
So now I have 28 versus 9. This one is literally getting 3 times the amount of impressions and clicks. So when I look at midi dress, let me just do this for fun. I don't even know if I'm going to show it. Let me just do this. Let me just see midi dress. What's this one here? It's that girl looking that way. Okay, there we are here. That's it. That's all I get. I can't show up more than once now. Why? Because Google says, well, screw all of the zombies that are in here. It's just this one that works. That's the way that when you kind of segment things out, you get your own zombies, and they're not zombies. Google just makes them zombies because they're focusing on something else. So the more that you hyper segment down, we got to be damn sure that dress is the actual dress that is selling extremely well. And it is, so we're fine. But if that was not, this entire category is down, where catch-all could have probably sold maybe one of those.
Yeah.
So we just have to be very, yeah.
You would eventually layer it, like you're saying, with the dog pile, just in a reverse manner.
Yeah, you can start wide. Exactly. Start wide. Exactly. A pyramid. Build your building blocks up for sure, but don't start wide and remove one and then stick that over there.
Yeah.
And then remove that block and stick it over there. Then you're literally saying, okay, everybody that ever could search any one of these products, I can predict it will be that one.
Yeah. You want to leave the catch-all there just in case the overflow gets caught up and you find a new hit or a new, cast a new line out and you catch a fish. You're like, okay, now we can lean more into that part of the lake or whatever.
Yeah, so that's always just my recommendations, and I'm only very bullish on this one because I think I do get a lot of questions, and I always want to kind of bring us back to a bit of reality, and that's what I think is sometimes we look at it as like, what's the best structure? It's like, depends.
Yeah, it all depends on market demand and what your top of funnel looks like and how that transitions over. So
you also can be very valuable to the client by doing it this way. If a client says, take these 5 products, sell them all, ignore the other 95. And then let's say you run a catch-all and the +5. And then you say, hey, did you know that these 5 do pretty well, but these other 17 actually are doing way better than those 5? Now, how does that work on TikTok, Meta, organic, your placements in even the free shopping listings, the ad copy you're going to be creating, the creatives, the blogs you're going to be writing? All of that changes now.
Yeah.
The entire company can potentially pivot directions. And so those are things that if you're an order taker, button pusher, you kind of become less valuable. You're no longer an asset. You're potentially just a weighted liability. Like one day this may break. So those type of things where it's like, hey, did you know? And by the way, and do you think, and should we test? Should we try? That all of a sudden now zombies are not your problem anymore. Now it's just what more best selling items can we keep kind of stacking on top of each other and building up. Then at the end of that, then you have zombies for sure.
I think this brings up a really, really important topic too, just in the space in general, because that made a lot of sense. And like, I think a lot of times for whatever reason, the space, well, for multiple reasons, the space has been more towards like, if you have good marketing, you're good. That's all you need is good marketing, drop shippers. Let's just go and find the winning product and just push it. And like, there is some like strategy to that per se, and like just capturing the demand, but the demand is already there. And you're looking at like temporary like products that are going to be gone in like maybe the next month or week, or some large brand then sees that's a trend and they have a lot more resources they can pull into it. So it's all like, I feel like people forget the product development side about it a lot. Make sure like really on marketing. So I'd be curious to see, because like there's also the argument too where, whenever you're pushing certain like trends, you can also create those trends with Facebook ads, and not like massive, like we're not talking like big trends, but like, let's say that you come out with a product, there's a feature in that product no one knows about. You promote the feature more and more to different demographics, it starts picking up steam, that gets captured on Google, and you just make sure that you build that funnel before other people do. But I'd be curious to see how that kind of transition, I don't know if you have any data on that, but I'd be curious to see how the transition is like, okay, do we need a lot of extra push for people to be captured on Google versus just the demand generation on Facebook and then remarketed? Or if we take that away, like take Google away, what happens to the top line numbers from that perspective then? Because like I know that certain brands, specifically in the supplement niche, you take away that standard shopping and it just goes to crap. And they're cold terms and everything.
Yeah. So I think that the inbound standard shopping is actually we're not gonna lie, it is heavily affected by your outbound marketing. 100%. That is something that, especially if you're in the industry where you're creating a new WYSIWYG, you might only live and die by that. And that's where it comes to, if you are developing the brand new WYSIWYG that no one's ever heard of before, do not run shopping, not outside of brand. And actually, your feed only PMAX is all you need. That might be the immediate need. We have to choose the proper placement for our channel based on the amount of flow of traffic in that channel. And if we go to Google, and I actually had this client, I had a talk with the client yesterday. He's like, I actually have the note still. We're tasked with actually looking for people in a 10-mile radius of New York that need a solution to their benign proximal positional vertigo.
What?
Okay. Their benign proximal positional vertigo. That's what they need. Also known as BPPV. And the BPPV is it's a type of vertigo that happens where it's called a benign proximal positional, which means when you stand up, you get vertigo. So what that means is now we're tasked with creating that. I can't even run a keyword on that search term because there is no search for it. People are actually already graduating themselves into what they would call a and I forget the exact terminology. So my apologies for this.
Would it just
Well,
be
whatever.
like vertigo? Like people just look up vertigo and then they convert that way versus typing in the next stage? Is that what you're
You know
saying?
what? I'll just show you. I'll just share screen. You're gonna kind of see some stuff here. Please don't share with anybody. We've been actually crushing this market already. In this other company, like this thing is working well, especially in New York City.
Also, for my editor, blur this out.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm just gonna kill. My internet still is flying. Like I don't know why. Like my internet speed is like whoa. Like look at that flex, but I can't load Google Ads, so I'm just trying to see what like bandwidth
You
I
have
can save
Google.
here.
Do you have Google Fiber?
No, I have.
Hmm.
I forget who we actually have. When we moved here, my wife did it, and I was just like, "Cool, we have internet."
I can work. I'm
I
alive.
know. I'm a really crappy husband. I was like, "Thanks, hon. Like you did everything." Oh, there we go. All right, I was gonna pause it just for a second, but let's do this. This is actually it's because I can't remember it. My stupid vestibular.
Oh, and you're doing display as well. That's a little
No,
scary.
it's inbound search.
Oh, I saw
It's
the display icon on the search thing.
Yeah, it has a display and it never runs, and we actually just kind of like left it on. So yeah, it doesn't we don't
Ignore
really get
that.
anything. Exactly, just ignore that part right there. Because that was looking at the conversion rates. I'm like, I don't really want to touch this thing. We're cranking 11.64. And this is actually also
Wow.
counting the difference. It's not all of them because we actually had to add that in there for the client that he wanted it. But like 10 first-time phone calls, 3 repeats, but 10 appointment requested and a call from ad, $37 for vestibular rehab. This is what happens when people have BPPV or whatever it's called. So here's what I'm saying is that when we're looking at people's searches or we're looking at kind of the structure and setup, the demand that is here really cannot be generated much. However, if we're having a whole lot of outbound marketing as the person who is the vestibular rehab physician in New York City and has about 20 years in the business, has a lot of partnerships, have a lot of, he hustles, feet on the street, drop ships, all the other, mail pieces, all this stuff. That's the only reason why this is working well and for how long it has been working. It has been working since 2021 and growing. And we got $24 CPA. We only spent 15 grand and this thing just keeps going.
Wow.
But I am stuck here. Like I'm not even limited by budget, and I'm spending 15 grand over 4 years.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's tiny.
Exactly. So this thing will never grow. This is your individual standard shopping campaign, by the way, for the product that maybe only has $15,000 worth of ad spend every
Year.
every presidential cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the things to think about. So this is kind of like the built-in zombie that we're just like, all right, cool. Let's just hang tight. Like we're not really even doing much. And it's all vestibular. Like that's the only thing people search for. So it's all equal across the board. We really can't do anything with each one of these keywords. We have no ad groups. The ad groups we have tried.
Yeah, that's another
are this
question I want to
here.
throw out, but
There you go.
okay.
These are all these are arthritis, scoliosis, ankle, leg, neurological, neck, knee. No one knows him as any of these things. As soon as we add vestibular, like, oh, this guy? Yeah. So
Well,
this is where,
scoliosis a little bit, but yeah.
yeah, scoliosis for sure. He actually wants to do that again. That's what we're talking about. So that's something we're gonna be trying again. But he actually said this is, well, here's what's funny. This is where it depends. He can't take insurance.
Yeah.
He's out of
I
network.
have a couple scoliosis clients as well too.
Yeah. And so he can only work with out of network clients. And so that's why it's like, okay, no one has vestibular insurance. Like that's not really like a thing, apparently. And he can work really, really well with them. He's got a whole process procedure. So it's almost like when you're not known about these things, when you have crappy pricing and when the insurance doesn't line up, you waste 400, 500, 300. But when you have the stars align, 10% conversion rates and years worth of, good solid growth.
Yeah.
So that was just simply
Makes
just
sense.
a kind of that use case of, you have a needle in a haystack. Every single one of your products in your campaign, even in a big catch-all, goes through the same process, just individually.
Yep.
Search terms pop up these 5 keywords. There are 5 products. Those search terms pop up these 10 products. Obviously, feed optimizations and matching titles and descriptions to intensive search terms is great. Breaking them out for scale can work well. If you don't need to break them out, it's actually good just to get rid of the zombies and keep your catch-all growing. So there's different ways that you could do it, but there's no such thing as the best. There is only what are the needs of the business/client. And that's how I always take it in great salt. But whatever those needs are, I test everything first, because what the client wanted may not be what is actually happening in reality.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that I always talk about too in the school community is like, and even just for, my AMs is like, your goal is to not necessarily like, there's never going to be a 100% like right answer. You just want to have an answer that's above 50%. That's your goal. Am I
Yep.
above 50% certain that this is going to work? Test it. And then just keep reiterating that based on what you're seeing. So I think what a lot of times, and this is kind of just pushing out to anyone that's watching this, that maybe is like new here, is like, we'll give you all this information, but like you can have the same exact product in the same exact niche, almost the same company, and have different results based on how your company is perceived.
Yeah.
And so all of that's going to be determined based off of like what you see in the account. So like the goal of what John is showing you guys is to essentially give you the tools to best make a decision based on the strategies that we know in, 80% of the time work, but there's still that 20% of the time that, you might be seeing less and less results from it. And this is how you pivot from that to something else.
Yeah. And the good thing to kind of keep in mind is before you start your campaign, it's like, well, client wants that product to run. Let's do it. There's been so many times where I've been coming to the situation, be like, why? I'm like, I don't know. Like we haven't done any
You
ounce
got
of
a lot of
research.
inventory.
Yeah. I don't know. He told me to do it or he's going to fire me. Like, well, if you do it and you're wrong, he's going to fire you anyway. Like, so that's what's kind of interesting is always kind of, make sure that ounce of prevention is always worth a pound of cure. It's always worth doing research. It's always worth saying, is it declining search volume? It's what we did with the other company that we checked year over year performance. And we said, hey, we have these 5 categories that we think are going to be growing in 2025, especially in Q2. And we should start to push on ad spend and start to ramp it up. Let me pull open or take this. Give me one moment. We actually
Also,
started launching a whole bunch more too. Go ahead.
super, I guess, side question, and it kind of goes back to the shopping conversation because I know this is going to be asked. When it comes to placements, and how you were saying like, there's only like one of the string of placements on the product that we're showing for because we have one campaign. Now, I know previously this was maybe years ago at Solutions 8, where we were bringing up topics on like, having multiple standard shopping campaigns to then get ads to show more. And then I've kind of pivoted away from that. What has been your experience on placements in terms of how often your ad shows, where you have one section where maybe it's just one campaign, or do you use multiple campaigns and have as many products as possible show up? Is that still relevant or is that no longer relevant?
It depends on the overlap of the products. And that's where, like, when we ran catch-all, when we still have a catch-all in this one company, we have a catch-all and we have a PMAX catch-all in this one company that's way outperforming everything else that we're doing here, just as an example. So this is kind of like dogpile. So I always, no matter what, will have a catch-all, period. That's like that's my safety net. Like those things will always figure out a person to sell something to today. Will it expand? Yes. Will it expand in the area that the client is asking me to? No. So that doesn't deserve any more ad spend unless it's overperforming, because the client will take free money. They just will not take expansion into areas where they don't want and is less performing. So that's kind of my safety net.
Low
That is
margin as
always
well.
exact, or yeah, low margin, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
This is the other. Remember when I think we were all here together where I'm like, hey, I launched like 4 of these standard shopping campaigns, and then we're gonna be launching more. Like this is all the best selling items that are in now in Q2 2024 comparative to Q1 2024. We're a little over 2/3 away from we're a little over 2/3 of the way through Q1 2025. These products should not be performing yet. We still have 19 or no, sorry, we have still 20 more days before these should do good, is according to the data. So because I know that, hey, it's going to be good, I started it right now. So all of a sudden you
Based on
see
just
like
lag time and everything.
exactly. So you can kind of see the cost and the conversions was like spending $100 a day to, okay, let's spend, $700 a day. And obviously conversions are scaling up with it. Good. Like we give it some time to learn and then we start to push. And so what we're seeing here too, which is nice, is if we just at least go by like the volume and ROAS, I have a winner, 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 winner. So basically anything that's within a low CPA or at least above 1 break even. This one is, it's at 100, which is good, but it's not yet making its own money. And this one's spending spending quite a bit, like 700 and compared to everything else, but is probably doing the worst. Okay, so fine. I have 6 out of 8 that are winners that are still only, really been going for last week. So in the first week, I'm not so good that I can just predict 280, 240, 180, 160 on all non-brand clicks and get $36 NCAC, 50 and 70, 110. Blended of these together is right here is 68. And this is obviously when you're including the brand down to 23. But this is a $68 CPA that's getting a 182. And that's like 6 campaigns in 1 week. So how is John Moran so good? He launches 6 winners out of 8. I researched. I know what I've been doing. That ounce of prevention is always worth a pound of cure. If I threw it all in one catch-all and then started, going out to lunch, I'll get some performance. And the client's like, get me more of those. We're like, I don't know what to do now. Like, it's just it's got to do whatever it wants. So you can still have the catch-all. They'll still do all that stuff. You can still push into it. But I keep those things separately. And it's always based on how to grow. But the best way to grow is always keep a catch-all. And then if you think that needs more money and you don't have anywhere to put it specifically, put it there. If you have more money and you need to put it in other things, start new. Do not try to reconfigure. It just will never work.